And so if I could take a magic wand and fix an issue, it would be to change people's mindset that um, you know, welding jobs, machining jobs, service jobs, manufacturing jobs, uh, they're not low-end jobs. These are careers, and our country has kind of started to devaluize some of those jobs. And boy, America would be so much stronger if we could continue to build that and build a manufacturing environment where we could make things here.
The Industrial Sage Executive Series, sharing the stories behind game-changing executives, their organizations, and insights into today's industry challenges. Mike, thank you so much for joining me today on the Executive Series.
Oh, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, well, I'm excited to get into today's episode. So, for those who aren't familiar with CHL Systems, could you give me a high level, like who you guys are, what you do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we design and build solutions that move, make, and pack the products that feed our country. That's the short clip of what we're involved with.
Excellent. All right. Well, I'm excited to kind of get into that a little bit more, as I suspect you guys, there's a lot been going on in that industry. We talk about food and packaging and just moving all that. So a lot of things that have been going on. But before we get into all of that, this is one of my favorite parts of the episode where we get to learn more about you. We get to learn about Mike. So Mike, take me back. How did you get in this industry? How did you get into this space?
Yeah, so I was kind of born into it. My father owned a company that designed and built custom machinery, one-off machines. You would come to us, you would have a need for something that you'd have to custom design and build. So at a young age, I started working as a machinist, working for my dad in that industry. Then I went to night school at Drexel University for industrial engineering and worked during the day for my father. And then when I graduated there, I went to the University of Pennsylvania. We're here in New York, just outside of Philadelphia. And the Wharton School had a management program, so I took that. I went through that application. So then from there, worked in various manufacturing jobs, learning how to make products, how to market and sell them. And, so those early days of being a machinist really I've kind of carried them all the way through my career, so understanding manufacturing has been a key part of my career.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I think is interesting is that you said your dad owned that business, right? He was creating machines, and you got a lot of little bit of I'm guessing some entrepreneurial, maybe some genes or certainly some learnings from seeing your father doing that. Talk to me a little bit about that. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. Yeah, so my dad was, he's still alive, a true inventor, a great engineer. He went to Drexel as well, so we have a family history of Drexel grads. But he was a true inventor of custom technologies. And so you just couldn't help but be a part of that, right? That's kind of who we were. And so, some of the technology that we would use was cutting edge. And so no challenge was too big, right? So to your entrepreneurial thing, the greater the challenge, the more exciting it was. And so, yeah, I have a piece of that in me too. Not as much as my dad, but enough to get me into trouble, right?
Yeah, that's always the rub right there. Enough to get you into trouble. That's good. Well, let's talk about some of that trouble. What trouble has that gotten you into?
Yeah, so I'm 59, right? I've been in this industry for since I was a teenager. So and been in different management positions pretty much all my life. So there's a lot of learning, right? You're dealing with a lot of people, how you work with people, how you learn from them, right? There's always an experience to learn. kind of builds who you are. And so that entrepreneurial spirit for me is really probably more driven around growth, right? How do you continue to grow a company, um, that's conservative, but at the same time, it's controlled growth, right? You're not just swinging 20, 30% one way or another, and then you're dipping back down, right? So I think probably through my years of experience, the biggest challenge is going to be how do you build a sustainable growth model that builds a company in manufacturing, right? You got to remember when I started in manufacturing, the percentage of manufacturing to service, it was 80 manufacturing, 20 service. Now that has switched to maybe 5% manufacturing and 95% service. So that's a huge dynamic change in manufacturing.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's continuing to evolve it seems like just certainly on a yearly basis, certainly with COVID, there's been a lot of, obviously a tremendous amount of change with that. But, kind of still sort of in the same vein of your journey with this, who has had, if you could talk to me about somebody who's had a big impact on your career, and I know there's a lot, but, is there somebody, that comes to mind that really has helped to kind of shape you, to help you to where you are today?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it depends upon the lens that you look through, right? So if you look at the entrepreneurial spirit, there's no doubt it was my father, right? I mean, I grew up in that. From a management standpoint, I worked at a company for a number of years called Harold Beck and Sons. They made electronic control drives, and there was a manager there. His name was John Meller, still alive, and his management perspective was just it was just rock solid. He didn't get too excited. He didn't get too down. He was really focused on how do we make everybody better. And so he was probably my manager when I was maybe 30, 59 now, and to this day, I still use phrases that he that he shared with me back then. So from a business environment, I'd have to say he was a big impact. In a personal life, there's plenty of guys that go to my church that I've worked with that have just really come alongside me and helped me with my walk. Those guys are rock solid. They may not be CEOs or famous people, but their impacts would be.
That's awesome. That's great. So, all right. So, let's moving to kind of pivoting here a little bit. What on a daily basis, what keeps you like super energized? What gets you, in the morning when you wake up and you say, okay, we're tackling this, or we're doing that. What is that thing that pushes you along?
Yeah, I wish it was one thing. The challenge is it's multiple things. And so for CHL, I think one of the main things and one of the real benefits that I really get out of working here is the people. Really strong technical craftsmanship type people here. And so they really get me fired up, right? Because they're the people you work with every day. So I enjoy that. I enjoy interacting with them. I enjoy being a part of their day. The growth model. How do you scale and grow at a respectable rate? We just opened an office in Texas, and so we're leaning into that space. So those things, you feel that entrepreneurial spirit.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about industry challenges and things that have been going on. Obviously, there's a lot of things going on right now. There's a lot of things that were going on because of COVID, stuff that was going on before COVID. What are those challenges that your customers are facing, right now?
Yeah, so probably the biggest challenge that a lot of our customers are facing is the labor shortage, right? And so, if you go back through the 2020, 2021, through the height of some of the COVID period, a lot of our customers, they may be protein providers, so they may have 500-600 people in the plant. So, just to keep their level of, headcount up, that was a challenge. So, moving forward, what's that challenge going to be? It's going to be continuing to find ways to automate, to help those workers out, right? To take some of the jobs that are really difficult, on them, and how can we automate that? And so that's a place where that we can help them. As of just this last week or two, the price of fuel, that's going to be a problem for all of us, right?
Yeah.
And um, and and we're all going to deal with that challenge, and that's the people that work here and the people that work in those facilities, right? They're going to pay more for gas, but beyond that, everything that we use that has petroleum, the price is going up.
Yeah.
Plastics, stainless steel, and anything that has that in its processing is going to affect everyone.
Yeah, unfortunately, hopefully that's going to be we'll see. Hopefully that's a short-term bump. I don't know. We'll see. There's a lot of craziness going on right now, but let's talk about how you're solving some of these challenges for your customers. You kind of mentioned a little bit earlier on. You have a sort of a partnership mentality when it comes to your customers. Talk to me about what does that look like, and how are you solving those challenges for your customers?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. So the mindset of partnering with your customer is huge for us. And what does that mean, right? So if you're working with a customer that is going to engage in some level of automation, right? For that to be really successful, there has to be a close knit communication, a trust both ways. It can't be, hey, I'm just going to take the lowest bidder, you're going to get the job and do it, right? There's got to be a long-term partnership that goes back and forth. And especially with automation, it depends upon what it is, right? It can be robotic automation. It can be hard machine automation that you're going to design a specific machine to do that. But educating everybody, especially the customer, on what does it mean to own this automation, right? And so when you look at that, that's a long-term play. That's not one order and I'm out and I'm going to go to the next, right? So when you really work with someone as a partner, the trust factor is huge, but also the outcome at the end, right? And so in our industry for a number of years, a lot of customers were really, they made a lot of decisions just on the return on investment. Well, you're starting to see that change a little bit, right? And you're seeing some of the years of return extending out. But the real benefit is that people are starting to see the value of really just having a close-knit partnership that they can rely on.
Yeah. So well, I guess I've got a couple questions I'd want to follow up with. One of them, I guess, would be, as far as a go-to-market strategy, are you guys working directly with customers? Like, in other words, are you working through integrators or, just directly with these customers, or, what does that look like?
Yeah, so we are working directly, with the customers in 98% of the information, right? There are some situations where we'll come in as an integrator for someone else. And the business model that we have is, we're going to take the project from inception to engineering to manufacturing to installation to commissioning, that's kind of like our competitive advantage, right? So in that model, you really want to have connection with the customer, right? So to really be able to make sure you understand what the needs are and you're providing that. When you go through another channel, sometimes that can be involved. But
certainly, yeah.
Yeah. So to your one question there about, how do you go to market, right? So for us, it's really important that, we don't have a one category, right? This is how we handle every customer. We're really trying to market to the customer that's going to be the best fit, right? And that's a challenge, but for us, that's the best model.
Yeah, I mean, do you have any stories or examples, like concrete, like hey, XYZ, we don't have to name a customer, but here's the challenge and kind of how you would walk them through that process. I know you mentioned, hey, we're going to design, then engineering and manufacturing. I mean, it sounds like you have a whole suite of solutions and capabilities. If I understand correctly, you have in-house manufacturing capabilities, and so I mean, you've got a really sort of from soup to nuts solution that can be fairly custom. Is that accurate?
Yeah, so when you look at what we can provide, so internally, how we do it is we break it into technologies, right? And so we have one technology group that's we call CPI, which is conveyance and process improvement. Then we have another group which is design build. Now that design build is like a one-off. You have a custom machine that you need us to take a look at, and we're gonna design and make that machine. And then we have a robotics area, which would be either palletizing or pick and place cell. And then the other area would be what we would call an equipment group, which would be products that we've designed for people several times, and maybe you're going to try to commoditize some of that. And that's a small piece of our business, but we'd like to see that grow. But so to answer your question, it depends upon which area it resided in. So for instance, if it was in a CPI environment, it could be a protein producer that wants to change how they're processing a particular product or a cut-up line or something like that. They would come to us and say, hey, here's our existing space. Well, now I need to design you a whole new layout with some technology that's going to produce that. So, and we've done that several times. So we'll go in, we'll look at what the requirements are. We'll come up with a design, a layout, working with the customer to meet their need. And then, upon that, we'll design it, make it, and put it in. The other model is if it's a custom design build, right? So the ideal scenario in that situation is that you partner with someone and say, hey, this has never been made before. So let's work together. We'll do an engineering study and we'll do some initial concepting to see if it's going to meet the need, like a stage design. And then if you get to that stage, if it's approved, then you go to the next. Right? So each model has its own path, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously there's a lot of automation companies and things out there, and now we're seeing a lot of investment coming in. It was interesting before the pandemic. So it seemed like we were seeing a lot of consolidation, PE money coming in, just acquiring a lot of groups and making these bigger organizations and growing through M&A. How does your organization really stand out from your peers? What's that competitive advantage?
Yeah, so our competitive advantage is really going to be one, we're high quality, so that we're known for that in the industry. Most of the area, especially in the CPI and the conveyance and process improvement, is in the sanitary design. It's in a protein plant that has to be washed down. So, the level of quality of your product, fit and finish, is essential to preventing any bacteria and those types of things, right? So, so that's number one, right? You make a quality product and good things happen. But the real advantage that we provide is the beginning to end, right? You're going to come to us, and we're going to work with you on what the concept is. How do we solve the problem? And then we have ownership all the way to the end. Where a lot of other people in the industry, they just, like you had mentioned earlier, they do one piece, and someone else has to take it from there. So the advantage, especially in this climate, right, when the labor pool's tight, so you'll be at some of these facilities where they may have had an engineering staff. Now they no longer have that. So they need to rely on partners to be able to provide that solution, right? Not just a conveyor or just an instrument conveyor. So without a doubt, that high quality, cutting edge technology, and we're gonna be with you through the whole process. That's our competitive advantage.
That sounds like a very strong competitive advantage to be, these are not simple solutions that you're bringing. These are very complex challenges, and they're high dollar. And I mean, there's the significant, these are operational, huge changes to organizations. So it's not something that you're going to take lightly. I would imagine. I'm not a food processor. I'm not a manufacturer, but I would. Yeah, you're not going to take that decision lightly. That sounds like a great value proposition, a competitive advantage to me. So, one of the things that I'm curious about, and this may feel a little off topic, but obviously, we were talking about a lot of changes. Labor is a big issue. It was an issue before COVID, but now certainly it's a much bigger issue, and it's a critical issue. What other challenges and changes have you seen in the organization, whether that's inside your organization or inside the industry, due to COVID?
Yeah. So it's interesting. We talk about COVID a lot, and we talk about challenges. And it's funny, as you look back, there was also opportunities.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so for us, it's, I just had this conversation the other day. We have a remote engineer in Ohio. I have a manufacturing guy who worked for us for 35 years, who's now working in Florida. We have an office in Texas with engineers and applications guys. And I say, would we have had that if we didn't have COVID, right? So COVID taught us how to work remotely, taught us how to work differently. We were blessed to have some really big orders and technology, IT, infrastructure in-house to make that happen. But it really has actually strengthened us. And so moving forward, the same model of that we use to try to partner with customers, we're partnering with vendors. So in the last year, it was a really strong year for us. We needed to partner with other manufacturers to help us do that work. And those relationships are phenomenal, and so they'll help us in our growth model, right? And so yes, COVID, without a doubt, had a lot of challenges, but it also had some opportunities that we may not have actually taken.
Okay, so I love that. First, I should have addressed it. What opportunities? And I like how you took that and you spun it, and you showed what you've learned and how you've been able to grow and be able to take advantage of those opportunities. And I think that's fantastic. And that's interesting when you ask a lot of our organizations about that, because you get some similar answers. It creates some other opportunities by doing that, certainly. But I think it's interesting, as you mentioned, it creates a little bit more diversity from your portfolio or your talent pool. You're able to go and maybe work with other people that you otherwise wouldn't be able to work with, or hire individuals who, because you had geographic constraints, that you don't have that anymore. So I think that's interesting. One last question, and I didn't send this to you, kind of on purpose.
Why?
Because I like getting this real. The real answer here. I'm going to give you a magic wand, okay? And you can solve any issue that you want, or take advantage of any opportunity for the industry. What would that be? And it can't say COVID. We're solving COVID, or gas prices right now.
Yeah. Wow, that's a great question. And so I'm gonna qualify the lens that I'm gonna use. Right?
Perfect.
So it's not going to be the lens of, hey, this is a poultry plant, or this is a pork plant. This is a manufacturing facility, right? And so if I could take a magic wand and fix an issue, it would be to change people's mindset that welding jobs, machining jobs, service jobs, manufacturing jobs, they're not low-end jobs. These are careers, and our country has kind of started to devalue some of those jobs. And boy, America would be so much stronger if we could continue to build that and build a manufacturing environment where, we could make things here again, right? So now that's my lens, may not be yours, but That would be awesome.
That's an awesome answer. Thank you for that. I have heard that several times. Actually, it's interesting, and I would try to keep it open. It's interesting because I think I agree. And I'll use ourselves as a person, as an example. I mean, several years ago, we never, as an organization, didn't have a ton of manufacturing or engineering background. We came from a video marketing agency and was working in the space and learning and had a perception like you were talking about. Had that perception, oh, it's dirty, it's what, I don't want to do that. We want to work with the cool technology companies. But when you started getting into it and you started seeing what was happening and you seeing true innovation, that was eye-opening. And it's been amazing. And so I think part of it is exposing, we have to expose people to what is going on, like the real innovation that's happening. It's not, okay, I'm doing this job, or the bigger impact that it's having, and that there is real innovation happening. That's exciting. I actually, just this morning, it was interesting. I was driving my kids to school, and we're driving by this open, it's very interesting. I don't know, I gotta make it digest, maybe I'm talking too much to them about this stuff, but there's this open field, big grass field, and the kids start talking about like, oh, yeah, that's a lot of grass to cut. And they're like, and they said, that we should, well, they should use robots, like robot, lawnmower, which are, whatever, that's here, right? And like, yeah, and they're like, well, I think it could take, if we had one per mile, maybe if that would be enough, or if, what I thought was interesting, and they're just discussing this among themselves, and they're young kids. I think my 8-year-old or 7-year-old or 9-year-old, however they're old, they changes every year, so I forget the ages. But maybe they've got a little bit of engineering mind, but thinking about that, and it was interesting. Just there was like excitement about how they were going to solve that challenge using robotics.
That's awesome.
And
one of the things we are seeing too, I'm sorry to cut you off, I apologize, is you're starting to see young engineers come out of school and then want to get the hands-on experience. We've had a couple engineers who started out as a mechanical engineer, designing type position, and move into a manufacturing engineering position because they need that hands-on, they need that piece of, I'm going to make something and craft it. Really encouraging.
Well, there's something super fulfilling with that, and to get in there, and I think there's a learning that you don't have without that. I don't have an engineering bone in me, so I have a deep appreciation for that. I mean, I really struggle putting IKEA furniture together, so I'm not a good litmus for that. But I think there is absolutely 100% something to that. So, anyways, I love your answer. I think it's fantastic, and I've really enjoyed our conversation. I'll give you the last word as we're about to close here. Is there anything you want to leave the audience with?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is easy to look at all the negatives, right, and look at all the challenges, but it's almost just as easy to look at the opportunities and see what can be done. We're a relational company, and so customers are becoming more relational, and that's a huge benefit because what you can accomplish together is far greater than what you can accomplish on your own. And so 2022 is going to be an interesting year, and we're going to have a lot of interesting things happen, but we'll get through it, and we'll be looking at the next challenge for 2023.
I love it. What I heard, there's going to be a lot of opportunities in 2022. That's what I heard. So, Mike, listen, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for your time. I've really enjoyed this. So for those who would like to learn more about you, they can go to chlsystems.com. Is that accurate? We got the right URL? Perfect. We'll make sure that is in the show notes so people can learn more about you. If they say, hey, listen, we want to learn more about these guys, they might be able to help us. That'd be fantastic. So again, thank you so much, Mike. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us for this week's episode. Get notified every time there's a new episode by signing up for our email newsletters. You can also subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And while you're there, please leave us a review so more industrial professionals can find us. Want us to tell your story? Go to industrialsage.com. This week's episode was produced by Rika Wiersma, filmed and edited by Optimum Productions, and our executive producer is Danny Gonzalez. Thank you for watching Industrial Sage.